In Brazil, every rhythm carries a story, one of faith, ancestry, and resistance, where singing is a form of prayer and harmony a way to remember. What you're listening to now is a harmony of Portuguese and Yoruba, of candomblé chants and Baroque melodies, a sacred bridge between Africa and Brazil, a music that made the spiritual audible, turning ancestral devotion into art. Here's a Brazilian group you should add to your playlists.
Eu vim de Cachoeira, Bahia.
Born in the city of Cachoeira, in the heart of Bahia's Recôncavo, Os Tincoãs emerged in the 1960s as a group unlike any other. Their first album, a little-known collection of boleros, gave no hint of what was to come. It was the arrival of Mateus Aleluia that transformed their path completely, reshaping their sound and influence. Their harmonies drew from the sacred chants of Afro-Brazilian religions, blending them with the structure of Brazilian popular music. It was precisely this fusion of bolero and terreiro songs, the spiritual music of candomblé, that made their sound unique, establishing them as a true cultural treasure of Brazil. With the release of their self-titled album, Os Tincoãs, their identity became unmistakable. Each track carried the atmosphere of the Recôncavo, the meeting point between the sacred and the everyday. Their songs were more than prayers. They sang about the orixás, divine spirits in Afro-Brazilian religion, each representing forces of nature and human virtues. Oxum, Xangô, Yansa, and many others can be identified in the lyrics and song titles. Through the pulse of the atabaques, sacred drums traditionally used in candomblé ceremonies, they echoed the rhythms of the terreiro, invoking the divine through sound. Candomblé, born from African ancestry and the struggle of enslaved peoples, became the faith that preserved identity through centuries of oppression. Woven from African waters, slavery, and resilience, it shaped Brazil's very soul, and through Os Tincoãs, that spirit finally sang on record. They were the first to do so, opening paths for an entire generation of artists who would later sing about the orixás, proudly, openly, and without fear. 10 years after the release of the album that first defined their sound, Os Tincoãs returned to the studio, this time for a new revolution. With the help of the Rio de Janeiro Post and Telegraph Choir, they combined the rhythmic and melodic complexity of candomblé chants with the Baroque sophistication of Catholic tradition. The result was Canto Afro-Brasileiro, a spiritual masterpiece that producer Adelson Alves described as the most complete fusion between ancestral African culture and Brazilian identity. Much like American gospel music, born from the struggle and faith of Black communities, Canto Afro-Brasileiro echoed a sacred resistance, voices rising together in praise, pain, and power. As Mateus Aleluia recalled, we noticed that there was a link between the sugarcane fields we have in Cachoeira and the cotton plantations in the U.S. South.
Adelson helped us realize that there was a lot in common between Africa on this side and Africa on that side.
In Portuguese, in Yoruba, and in ancient Kimbuyu, Os Tincoãs bridged continents. They weren't just making music, they were remaking identity. Despite early critical praise, festival appearances, and even a version of Cordeiro de Nana, recorded by João Gilberto alongside Maria Bethânia, Caetano Veloso, and Gilberto Gil, Os Tincoãs eventually faded into silence after some of its members moved to Angola. Yet silence is never the end.
Tincoãs não começou nem terminou. É uma coisa que está. O propósito do trabalho era a gente pôr para fora aquilo que nós éramos.
By the 2000s, crate diggers and DJs across Brazil began hunting for the few surviving vinyl copies. Their sound returned through a new generation. Afrobeat collectives like Biciga 70 and rappers Criollo and Emicida, who wove its ancestral pulse into modern beats. A 2014 compilation, Welcome to the Orixás' Homeland, helped ignite that rediscovery, carrying their legacy to new ears around the world. And in 2023, the story came full circle. The long-lost master tapes from 1983 were finally released as Canto Afro-Brasileiro, thanks to Mateus Aleluia, who had safeguarded the original recordings for decades. After years of silence, their voices rose again, not as an echo of the past, but as a reminder that faith, rhythm, and resistance always find their way home. As Brazil celebrates Black Consciousness Month, the story of Os Tincoãs becomes more than music. It stands as a proud affirmation of African heritage and a reminder of the ongoing fight against racism and religious prejudice. They represent an insurgent Brazil that, as Emicida once said, despite being a victim of slavery and colonial erasure, never stopped creating beauty. Their legacy challenges religious intolerance and places the sacred traditions of the Orixás at the very center of Brazilian popular music, where they have always belonged. And in every harmony, drumbeat, and prayer, Os Tincoãs remind us that resistance can sound like reverence, and that beauty, too, is a form of freedom. Because when we choose to tell these stories, we are not just remembering the past, we are shaping the future of the Brazil we want to live in. Press play and let yourself dive into the rhythms of Afro-Brazilian music.